seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, here we go. Good morning. What is happening? It's episode 4 of the Breakfast Bar, I think we're up to now. 4 mornings cursing my luck. Johnny cursing myself, going, what is wrong with you, Bhoycie? You just did a pod last night. Why are you doing another one this morning? Because there's always loads to talk about. And today we've got another action-packed show. Hopefully David Logan's going to join us as well. So I will have double trouble alongside me. Over 20 folk have jumped on the bus already, mate, for the morning pickup. Brilliant to see you all. This is the Breakfast Bar. It is the 16th of November. It's 8:37 a.m. and we are ready to rock and roll. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Good morning, everybody. Good evening for those that might be elsewhere.
Yes,
yeah,
I like that.
You're packing in the shifts, aren't you?
Oh, mate, it's all. Hey, listen, some of these other plant pots wouldn't know a day's work if it bit them in the arse, mate. I'm telling you, it doesn't bother me. I'm all for it. I'll go do my full shift after this. Quite content that we have picked up the passengers on a Wednesday morning, as always, because that is the new routine, the midweek morning show, and that will carry on throughout the World Cup as well. But forget about players going off, to the World Cup. Celtic have landed in Sydney. A lot of the old Celtic content is now available on the old YouTube, so I was having a wee nosy at that. It was all the sort of generic stuff you would expect. Cal McGregor getting interviewed in front of the Sydney Opera House and all that, but that's all good. I nearly called it the Sydney Playhouse there, and I was like, don't get this wrong, Bhoycie, don't get this wrong. But yes, we're going to be looking at the back pages as always, and we look ahead to the Sydney Super Cup or the Ange's homecoming tour, whichever one you prefer. But before we get started with that, we're going to do all that good stuff. So obviously with all yous watching live, and especially because this is a show we're trying to grow, please hit that like button. If you want to do me a favour, give it a wee share. That would always mean the world to us. And of course, most of you I know are already subscribers, but if you're not, hit the subscribe button. What are you waiting for? And please always stay lively in the comments, because we like to have the comments interactive as possible. It keeps the bus running, and there we are, just on time. David Lowe jumps on the bus just as I'm pulling out the station. There he is there. Good morning, David. Oh, he's silent now. I don't know if he's
chasing after the bus. I'm running a bit like a dafty, running after that bus that's pulling away from the station. Wait, driver, wait.
Just flew right past you standing at the bus stop, eh?
Soaking wet, Splashed me with a puddle and everything.
That
That's our bus drivers for you, boy.
Soap.
So we'll get stuck into it. Simple as that. We'll start with the Sydney Cup, right? The Sydney Super Cup, right? We'll start with that because obviously this is a tournament that I think has been a bit of marketing genius by the club. I think has been something we've done, Johnny, that needed to be done when you've got a manager who's about to enter the Australian Hall of Fame. I don't know if you've seen that as well. He's about to enter the Australian Hall of Fame. He's done an interview on that. This guy in Australia is viewed, stupid. I don't even think we've kind of worked out how big he really is back home for him. And I think Celtic doing a tournament over there made total sense. If Rangers wanted to tag along, they were more than welcome to. The fact they're not has made absolutely no odds to anything. It's going to be Sydney that we play and Everton. It's going to give exposure for Celtic that I think knows no bounds. And it's very important that we do things like this. I also think, obviously, when it comes to the revenue we're going to make, Johnny, these are the sort of avenues Celtic commercially need to be looking at. Because as a club, we are in a league where we always say we're hamstrung. Oh, well, we don't get the TV money the rest of the countries do. But fuck that. Celtic's a global brand. Celtic's brand is 10 times the size of half these clubs we bitch about getting bigger TV deals in England and stuff. So how do we then capitalise on it? Well, the way to capitalise on it is examples like this Sydney Super Cup. We reckon it's worth a reported £6 million. If that's the case, to me, this tournament was an absolute no-brainer. And good on Celtic for doing it. And I also think, shall we use the saying already? It tickles Ange's balls getting to go over to Australia, He gets to go over there. He gets to, the return of the king, the Messiah. Who cares? I don't mind all that stuff. What I will say is, if Ange were to leave, and no one wants him to leave, guys, right? But just say he were to leave in a few months, this will get flipped into some sort of sadistic, egotistical tournament, like the way we turned on Brendan Rodgers. That's how folk will view it. But anyway, that's a long way down the garden path.
I think it was obviously a no-brainer. And I know Celtic have been out to Australia in the past, but I don't think it's ever been to the same scale as what we've got this next couple of days, because obviously we didn't have the Ange factor, which is a massive thing. But also, when they've been out before, it's been on pre-season tours, and some of the players that the fans out in Australia would have liked to have seen probably weren't there because there was the possibility that they were going to be leaving anyway. But despite the fact we've got this World Cup in the middle of our season, it's created this opportunity. And the fact that we've only got 4 of our sort of main men out there at the World Cup means that we're taking a strong squad out. So I think it's probably a combination of Ange and a combination of them getting to see the likes of Jota, Kyogo, Hitati playing out in Australia. Will have excited the Australian fans a lot more than previous visits. And I'm not sure of what the sales of the tickets are, but I believe that if it's not sold out, it's pretty close.
They're strong.
And it's like you said, the money we're getting paid for it's a no-brainer. Maybe the Rangers fans are regretting that they're not going out there now, because then it means they could have got the money to pay off Gio.
Well, David, how did we get here? That's a good point. David, how did we arrive here? Because when you think about it, this has been heralded, this tournament, as the first time ever we were going to see Celtic play Rangers on foreign shores, remember? That was kind of what we thought, or we were being led to believe by the Scottish media, was the USP, right? The unique selling point of this was going to be Australia were getting a chance to watch one of the most famous, if not the most famous derby. It's not the most famous, by the way, but we'll call it that, right? The most famous derby, world football in Australia, first time ever in foreign soil. This is going to be groundbreaking. This is huge. But when one half of that pulls out, the tournament will go down the tubes. And if you want my honest take, I do believe that the other half maybe thought naively that this wouldn't still keep the momentum of this tournament, wouldn't keep going. And I don't blame them for that. Again, ignorance. We spoke about ignorance last week towards the Japanese football, for example, David. I think there's been ignorance here, on my part included, towards how big Postecoglou is in what is one of, a giant of sport. That is what Australia is, right? They are a giant in the sporting world, right? And he is, one of the biggest figures in Australia's sport right now. So, okay, bye-bye Rangers. This tournament will still go ahead. Watch Postecoglou sell the tickets almost himself, and obviously the Celtic brand. But they go hand in hand so well. But when you think about it, from a tournament that was going to be, there was a lot of controversy about it, remember, because, do we really want to be playing friendlies against Rangers? Does that sit with our Scottish appetite very well? It's meant to be, blood and thunder the whole way through. Now it turns out it's a game against another team in blue, but it's Everton. I actually think it's interesting because I think we play Everton, and I think we'll beat them. That's the honest truth. I think we'll beat them, and I think this could give some of the Celtic squad, because they didn't get a win in the Champions League, and I know these are friendlies, but I still think, I always remember, I could sound, fucking Jesus Christ, I'll just do it now. Sound the klaxon, man, honestly. What minute are we on?
11 minutes.
11 minutes. But we used to play do you remember, Johnny, we used to play like testimonials back in 2000, 2001. Almost every Man United player would pick Celtic, right?
Well, nearly any player in England wanted Celtic. And to be fair, Rangers as well, but especially Celtic, to go down there, because they knew that there'd be, it didn't matter whether any of their own team's fans turned up, because they knew there was going to be about 15 or 20,000 Celtic supporters would turn up.
Aye, but what the point I'm thinking along the lines of is, right, see, under O'Neill, it started becoming like these were friendlies. I remember we went to Old Trafford and battered Man United and Ryan Giggs' testimonial, for example, David, 4-3. And I think that gave us a lift, right? I do believe that took us into the Champions League. Then that season we went, we've got the bit between, we can beat anyone. I wonder if Celtic will take the game a wee bit more competitively against Everton than what they might the Sydney game. And it just might help give a bit of belief to these players that that's an EPL team, I don't know if Everton have ever been relegated. But even then, you look at the squad right now, might not be the best squad in the English Premier League. It cost 10 times what ours did. I wonder if Celtic will take this game a wee bit more seriously, David, when it comes to Everton at the weekend. And we might do something that builds our confidence going into next season. It gives us a point of reference that, look, forget the financial disparity. You played Everton at Christmas, you took them to school. I just wonder if that'll be behind Ange's thinking now, going into the game.
I'll tell you who will be taking that game seriously, and that'll be Frank Lampard, because his job's, his head's on the chopping block right now, and he might not want to admit that he'll be taking it seriously, because it's a whole friendly sort of thing. Don't worry about it if we lose, but deep down he's taking that seriously. He doesn't want to get beat off a guy that nobody heard of on this side of the world, and especially getting beat by Celtic, who apparently wouldn't manage it even in League One down there. So I think that'll be all in Ange's team talk. That, like you said,
yep.
This might be a friendly on paper, but this is a great chance to prove yourself against an English Premier League side whose wages dwarf anybody. There's some of their kids' whose wages will dwarf some of our players. What you're saying about the naively, maybe Rangers felt that this tournament might have went down the Swanee when they pulled out. I'm the same as you. I think we have underestimated how much of a superstar Ange Postecoglou is over there. Like, he's there.
Myself included, David.
He's their Jose Mourinho. They're Alex Ferguson. I'm not saying that he's good as they two, obviously, but I'm saying, but on their wavelength, like that's they do see him as like a sporting god almost. He might even be. In fact, I think he is a bigger draw for the tournament than Celtic is for the tournament. That's why I think this tournament's still going ahead. Like, it was probably sold. It was probably sold to them. Look, we've never done the Glasgow Derby over in Australia. Let's do it. It'll be great for all the fans over there to see the derby finally out of Scotland, you know, kind of like what we do with the Man United, Liverpool, Man City, all that kind of stuff. You know, that would have been the big selling point. I mean, Rangers have pulled out due to fan unrest. You could have went, well, what's the selling point? Oh no, we didn't care that it was Celtic or Rangers. It was Ange Postecoglou. We're fussed about. It's just a massive bonus that Celtic's coming along too. You know, and what he's bringing with them is it's the real deal. It's not the tribute act, like you said. It's not the guys that you're not overly fussed for seeing. A couple of fringe players or youth players because the big boys aren't interested in coming over to Australia and playing on a friendly. This is the real Oasis. This isn't Stop the Clocks or the real David. This is the David Bowie, not the David Bowie tribute act. You know, this is.
I know Stop the Clocks, by the way. I know him.
I know the drummer as well. But all I'm saying is, you want to see the real Oasis.
Small world. I know them. They played my boozer a couple of times. But I think it's an interesting point that you make because I think it goes hand in hand. I think, how do you entice Celtic over to Australia in peak Australian weather time and all that? You know, how do you get them over there mid-season? Well, this World Cup's afforded that opportunity. So it's a win-win because I suppose you get to a situation where sometimes you get leagues that maybe, as Ange quite dismissively says, it's treated like a backwater. He goes, we had VAR 4 years ago. I loved all that stuff when he said that because you're like, fair enough, the A-League that we would treat as a Diddy competition, how come they've got the technology we don't? But they probably do search a wee bit for that credit. You do that when you're one of the smaller footballing leagues. I don't mean smaller sporting nations. Wow, Australia's as big as you can get. But I wonder if they were going, Johnny, getting Celtic over here, playing one of our teams. Hopefully it's competitive. Hopefully it's not a drubbing. That can raise the profile of their teams as well. Of course it can. So it's a win for them there. And of course you've got Ange going over, being inducted into the Australia Hall of Fame. It all just works perfectly. This tournament, to me, is marketing gold, Johnny, at a time where we've just experienced the Champions League. 6 games, no wins. We now know how big that gap is that we need to try and bridge somehow. I think this is a brilliant example we're about to go into of how Celtic can be creative and somehow bring in some sort of extra pennies that they otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the unique situation of the World Cup being held when it is landed in our laps in that respect when you add Postecoglou to the equation. And yeah, the Australians, they'll be trying to develop increase the profile of their league. And what was that? When was it was it when Ange was manager? Was it at Melbourne when they played in that competition that Man United went out when they had to pull out of did they pull out of the FA Cup completely that year? And that was when I think Ferguson was a manager at the time, and they went off to play in was it held in Brazil or something? Because that's when Ange played. Was it Man United and Man City? No, Man United.
It was Man United. Man United, the World Club Championships, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, that'd be when Ange was Ange still playing then, or was he a manager just
he was a manager. Oh, he was a manager by then.
Yeah,
he was doing a manager by then.
They were talking about that on one of the programs I watched about Ange when he came back, and that was all the Australians that they were trying to build up their brand, if you like, and build up the league. And I think that league folded, and the current one sort of developed from there. But yeah, this has just been a brilliant opportunity for us branding and getting on and building up the profile and getting Celtic out there. Where there's a massive support out there. I'm surprised we haven't brought out a football top, something like this one with the colours that I've got on today. That I put on today in tribute to the Australia tour. But yeah, fantastic opportunity. And like you said, we're getting for it £6 million? Well, that's only about, what do we get for winning the league?
2 million or something.
I think it's all in. Yeah, you get about 2.5 mil.
Yeah. So, like I said, the money we're making for it, and then of course next year we can expand on that because it's got to be Japan next close season, hasn't it?
I don't know. I would just go back to Australia. Just go back to that well. Why wouldn't you? Why would you? I mean, I don't see why you would. I'm not saying it's not a bad idea to go to Japan. Of course it is. He's very well liked out there enough that the national team apparently want him as their next manager. But why would you not just go back to that Australian well? Like, that's where the fans are.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. But then again, you look at the connections we've got with Japan now. We've got the three main ones. Looks like we're going to be adding at least one more Japanese player in the closed window. And the Japanese supporters, they tend to follow players just as much as teams. Mm-hmm. So if a guy's playing for Yokohama and he moves to Celtic, then they start following Celtic as well because they're following that particular player, such as Maeda or Kyogo or Hitati. So there's a big opportunity there to get 2 or 3 games and make some good money out of that as well. And they'll pay the money for it.
Well, it leads us on very nicely because obviously Postecoglou, Bob comes in, our resident Rangers fan, and he says Frank Lampard is circling the drain at Everton. What if Ange makes an impression? Well, he's not Everton aren't the only entity that are interested in Ange Postecoglou right now. Apparently, he's top of the list with the Japanese FA. Is that a thing? I don't know. The Japanese, like whoever it is, the powers that be at Japan, right? They're thinking he would be top of our list if we were to make a managerial change as well. Now, I think we're all very guilty at times. And do you know what? With a hell of a lot of good reason to suggest the media at times are stirring the pot a bit, right? Let's say stirring the pot and trying to unsettle our players or our manager and things like that. But I think the story came out yesterday that he would be top of, the Japanese wish list. Were they to make a managerial change, David, that should come as no surprise to anyone. I would like to think he was top of their list. He's been in Japan. It's, very difficult when you don't speak that language to acclimatise as well as Ange did. Wins a league title in his second season. I mean, I think he's viewed over there, again, pretty highly. He's obviously came to Celtic. He's had real success here as well. A massive club. Doesn't surprise me that Japan would be linked with him. The Everton one that Bob's referring to, I don't think it matters if Celtic beat Everton 7-0. Everton could come in with a crazy bid for Ange, but not for me. Is that where he's viewing his future? That's a club that, what was it? Under Benitez last summer, they spent £1.7 million on one player. That was it. I think it was a winger. Or what was his name? Oh, fuck knows. It doesn't really matter. But in English terms...
The boy for Germany. Was it not the
No, he used to play for Leicester. He was a winger.
Not go off to Germany and then come... That's what I meant.
Oh, maybe. But it was like 1.7 million. And you're going, that do they really have a future? Have they got a vision? That's it.
Sorry.
Go say that again.
Demarai Gray, or I don't know if I pronounced his first name right, but it's Gray.
You're right. Demarai Gray. That's exactly it. And
then they also bought at the same time. They bought, was it Andros Townsend or something as well? Like, yeah, but that's because they've spent so much money over the last 5 or 6 years that they've pissed it all down the drain, haven't they?
Well, exactly. But either way, it doesn't mean they've got a vision now going forward. He's not going to go into EPL, which, let's be honest, is somewhere where the manager lifespan, I think, can be anywhere between 6 months to 2 years. Sort of like, I think matches. It's a difficult climate to be in unless you're completely backed. I think Everton are capable of backing Ange to the tilt when you look at what Celtic have done with Postecoglou is they've went, okay, couple of assets had to leave last summer, like Aya, like Edward, but they basically gave him the full funds to go and rebuild the squad. Now, I'm not saying well done Celtic, you gave him loads of money, but realistically, he got a percentage of Celtic's, revenue from fees that players that we sold. He got a huge percentage of that. I think if he went into Everton, he'd be going, what am I actually getting here to play with? I think it'd be an uphill task. I don't see that being a job that would attract him in the slightest. The Japan international one, I think that'd be something he would look at. Not now, though. Not now. But also, it does remind you, when you see these links, and of course, I think he'd rebuff them both for it, right? I do. I don't think he'd be interested, David, right? But the one thing I would say is these links should always be a timely reminder that we've got a manager on a rolling contract, and always remember Brendan Rodgers I think was probably more up the fans' arses than what Postecoglou is, and yet he still fucked off at some point. You know, it can happen, but I don't see Japan or Everton being his, his destination next.
No, I think we've got to be realistic and realise that there's any half decent job that comes up, becomes available, Ange is going to be linked to, and but we do, as D Max just saying, that we've got to get him on that long-term deal. And I know people can say, well, long-term deals mean nothing. Look at Rodgers. Yeah, but look at Rodgers. We got £9 million when he moved on.
Who's linking him though? This is what I keep saying. I've been saying it in the group chat loads, right? Every time a manager down south gets sacked, I don't even bat an eyelid, right? The only people that are linking Ange to the job are the media up here that want to stir the pot. No media down south gives a shit about Ange Postecoglou yet. They don't. What Wolves have been trying to find a manager for how long? Not once has Ange Postecoglou's name came up, because they don't. At the end of the day, Ange could scud every team up here 10-0 every week, and down south they'll go, but you should. You're Celtic.
Yeah.
It's a two-horse league. Who gives a shit? Start doing stuff in the Champions League. Then we'll start talking. That's just the English arrogance and ignorance to our game. Right now, Ange Postecoglou winning the league that you should have won last year hasn't raised any eyebrows yet. There's some pundits that have maybe thought, Celtic looked brave in the Champions League. They did. They looked brave. That's what they're saying. Didn't say they looked great or they did amazing. The beginning, all you have to do is look at those idiots on that TalkSport, screaming and laughing at our results. They're not rating Ange Postecoglou yet. That's just the way I see it.
Those two idiots will never rate Ange, by the way, David.
Yeah, but they're at the front of the mainstream media down there. They're the ones that are putting out on the airwaves the thoughts of a lot of the English fans.
I'm not convinced Jason Cundy is as elite as maybe what you're thinking. I think he's a bit of a plant pot that they put on at 10 o'clock at night.
But he's on one of the biggest sports radio shows on the, and he's. I'm just using him as an example. But my point is, Ange Postecoglou right now just isn't really on any of the Premier League's lists or high enough on it to really worry me. When you look at like I said, you look at Wolves, even Leicester. Obviously, Brendan's doing a lot better now. There's Southampton's just sacked their manager, and they've signed they've just taken a manager for League One.
That's true, yeah.
You know what I mean? A League One manager, and I'm sure he's obviously done a crack. I don't know anything about League One. I'm not going to, we've just got Matt O'Reilly for League One, but Ange Postecoglou wasn't even brought up. Nah, we're going right away. We're going for that League One manager. That's what they're looking at. So right now, until Ange starts really pulling up trees in Europe, or maybe like you said, like Monty or was it Bob McBob said, if he starts if he impresses against Everton, maybe they'll go. They're seeing it in the flesh. Oh, okay. Now we're starting to see what everyone up north are talking about. But Ange taking the Japanese job, that's a step back for him at this moment in time. He's done an international gig, and he didn't stick around for his own national team, which were qualifying for they were doing really well, and he didn't stick around.
Well, he'd actually got into the World Cup, and then he walked before
and then he left,
didn't he? Because he wasn't happy with them.
So I just think the international gig right now probably just isn't tickling his balls right now. I think he's on the upward trajectory, and he knows. I think if things keep going the way it's going, eventually somebody down south will want to take a punt on Ange. He's probably aware of that he'll have a vision and where he wants to head if he wants to move on from Celtic at some point, or maybe he'll be happy to see 4 or 5 years at Celtic, because that's what I think he's trying to have us believe anyway when he talks about 4-year plan, 5-year plan. I think he also mentioned whether I'm here or not, but I think his main focus is club football, and it's either getting Celtic to this European elite level that he wants or sees Celtic playing at and him managing at, or he sees himself at a much higher club than Everton Football Club.
Well, I
don't agree with you when you say, if we beat Everton on Sunday morning, that might lift his profile slightly up in the English media and that, because I think they'll just say, "Yeah, it was only a friendly, and it was only Everton." To be fair, I don't
No, but
think
what I mean is Everton might go. Everton might go.
Everton
Oh,
might,
okay. Yeah, because right now, Ange Postecoglou's not even been mentioned in the whole. Oh well, if Lampard leaves, Ange Postecoglou's on the list. No way does it say Everton have got one eye on Ange Postecoglou. But what I'm saying is, if they see what he does in the flesh, the way he carries himself, there'll be media press conferences out there that they'll see in the flesh, and they'll go. Because I don't believe Everton's backroom staff and higher ups have been watching Ange Postecoglou's media conferences up here. But if they see any sort of the media over there, they might go, "Oh, I quite like the way he carries himself. He talks well. Oh, this guy is actually the real deal. Look at the fucking fanfare around here about this guy. There must be something that we're missing, that we're not seeing just because he's managing a club that should be winning the SPFL every year."
And it has to be said.
That's what I'm saying.
It has to be said, if there's a club in England that needs to appoint a manager that's going to get fans on side, it's Everton, because they've made some horrendous decisions in the last few years.
Yeah, of course they have. I mean, the one thing I would say about Postecoglou as well, though, whilst you're right, there might be some ignorant pundits in the media who don't know much and maybe still view his achievements in Scotland not a lot. I think the more telling interviews that you see are the ones with the likes of Regan shared in the group chat last week with Craig Bellamy, who was saying when he was at Anderlecht, and I think Craig Bellamy was sporting director or something there, and he went, "Oh no, he was well on our radar. Like well on our radar, because everyone knows what he was doing in Japan." He goes, he's City Group links, and obviously they had Vincent Kompany, so that was like why his name was coming up. He goes, no one's surprised at what he's doing there. He goes, he's well thought of. He did that interview only, I think, a week ago on a podcast, and he was saying he's top manager. But anyway, less of that, because Postecoglou's going nowhere. One player who might be, though, guys, judging by the back pages today, this will come as no surprise to anyone who has been jumping on the Bhoycie'S bus over the last sort of 3-4 months. Since the summer, really, we always felt there was an asset in that team that I think would bat his eyelids to, potentially getting a more sexy move, shall we say, a move of higher pay. And Johnny, that name came up yet again. Apparently contract talks have this time stalled. That's the reason. Who knows who's leaking these stories, whether it's Celtic leaking them, whether it's his agent again. I remember having a big debate in the summer going, look, he's been linked with clubs like Chelsea, Atletico Madrid. There's 3 sources it comes from. It comes from Celtic trying to punt a player. It comes from an agent trying to punt his man. Or it comes from the club trying to buy him, trying to obviously create some hype and unsettle the player. I found it very unlikely the latter, because Atletico Madrid and Chelsea can, with all due respect to ourselves, they can come in and they can take our players. They have the money without having to get it into a public bidding war. They can afford it, right? Whereas it comes to then 2 more sources. Are Celtic trying to offload a player, or is the player himself trying to engineer a move? This is the 3rd time we've woke up to stories about Juranovic since the summer. There was only just 2 months ago about January, or a month ago about January moves.
Yeah.
We're now seeing his contract talks that have stalled, apparently. Either way, whether this is coming from Juranovic, whether it's coming from Celtic, this is a guy who I see being one of, if not the example Ange was trying to give when he was talking about agility in the transfer market. And he was talking about expect some of, your heroes, your icons to maybe be leaving it, sooner than maybe you would have hoped. Don't get too attached, And I think for me, hopefully he has a good World Cup on that basis, because it'll inflate his fee, Johnny. But I think undeniably there's too many stories now. His Celtic career ain't going to be a long one.
No, I don't think so. And I think the stories are coming out again, like I said this morning. I've not actually seen the papers. I've actually been reading it on the group chat that the lads have been putting up. And I think it's probably the agent this time, but possibly even the agent with the blessing of Celtic or the agreement of Celtic, because the agent's going to want to get this price bammed up because he wants to increase his own income. Celtic are going to be quite happy for them to be putting it out if this is what's going to happen. He's not back the deal. We're not going to be offering him any more. We'll be quite happy for him to move on, because we can cope with him moving on. And I think I'm actually just about to contradict myself, because I was going to say I think a right back is easier to replace than than some of the more exciting players, if you like. But then I was just to compare that with how long it's actually taken us to get anything like a replacement for Kieran Tierney on the other side of the park.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's maybe not quite so easy, but we've got someone in there who might not be the sexiest player in the world, never going to be the best fullback in the world, but he's doing a good job for us and he hasn't cost us anything. And he's been around a long time, and that's, of course, big David's lookalike, Ralston.
Not sexy. Look, all right, okay. Just, might not be the sexiest player in the world, but David's lookalike. All right.
There you go. That's his claim of fame, eh? But and I think he's also, anybody who watches
keep digging.
No. David's like you, and he's not that sexy either. But anyway, he's the one I think we've all pretty much agreed on the bus, whether it be in the group chat or on the shows, that he's the one that we could, if I had to lose one, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago in the breakfast bar. If we had to pick one of the saleable assets that we're not going to be that worried if we lose, it's going to be him. So a good World Cup bangs a few extra zeros on the price, and we say thank you very much. You've done all right for us. You've done decent. Thanks very much. You go off and enjoy the rest of your career. We'll get a replacement for you.
David, the boy's on a contract till 2026. I think we need to look at it realistically here. He's probably one of those guys that comes in that you kind of, if you're going to, flip it, if you like, in terms of like bring him in at a decent price and sell him for a good fee, because of his age, 26, 27, he was one of the ones that was going to be a shorter time. He's in contract at Celtic till the summer of 2026. We can still command a peak fee for this guy. But you also have to see it from the player's point of view, kind of. He was at Legia Warsaw up till last summer. I don't know what they pay in wages, but it ain't going to have been great, right? So he is probably looking at it as going, Celtic were maybe a stepping stone for him. I think he's a bit deluded. I think he'd be found out at a better club. Other people might disagree with that. I think he would be. But what I will say is, if these rumours carry on persisting, the doubt in my mind that he'll be the one, if anyone's to go in January, it's going to be Josip Juranovic, and he just seems the most likely now. All roads seem to point towards, if Celtic are going to sell an asset, David, it's going to be Juranovic.
No, there's no smoke without fireballs. Sorry. Sorry, it's too early for that pitch in the morning. Right. So he is, from what I've seen, I watched a wee bit of the Nations League games like he featured in, and he did have a very good game against France. He actually had a very good Nations League. I think he's one of these players that steps up his game almost for his national team, and that's not to say that he's not been stepping up his game for Celtic. That's not what I'm saying at all. He wouldn't be getting linked to moves if he hadn't been, and creating so much debate between our fans whether he's the starting right back or not. So, but I think he does play very well for his national team. He does appear to be the first choice. He's one of the first choice in the team, whether he plays at right back or left back. I've seen him play left back for Croatia as well. I think it all really is going to depend on how well Croatia do this year. Do I see them getting to a World Cup final again? No, not this year. But if they manage to get out of their group and they have a decent little World Cup run, it's like you say, it's only going to, and so long as he's in the team, of course, it's only going to inflate his price tag for us. I think it's a definite that he is probably going to move on. I did say when we were debating in the summer whether he would leave in the summer, and the way I seen it was keep him to the World Cup. We've got a January transfer window there. That's where we're best to sell him, so long as he has a good World Cup. And that seems to be where the road is leading to. I think you're right, though. I think he will get found out because I think in his head, he's seeing, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea. I've even seen Man United over the weekend there that apparently might be interested in him. But I think in realistic terms, it's going to be a Southampton, Wolves, Leicester City. Like, I think it's going to be more one of those kind of clubs. If it's a Premier League club he moves to, he might find that a Spanish club or maybe an Italian club would come in for him. Celtic has been stepping stone FC for Juranovic, and I think, and that's fine. Like you said, he is 27 years old. It's a short career. He wants to get to the Premier League or the Spanish league. This is the avenue that he's had to take. There's been plenty of players in the past that have done it and made successful careers out of doing it. He was only at Legia Warsaw for a year, I believe. So that kind of says a lot about how what his loyalty to a club is. Like he's just trying to climb the ladder, and he's obviously got a very good agent. I hadn't heard of him when he was linked to us. I only found out that he played against Scotland. That was only when they beat us in the Euros. I didn't even know him then. So he's done very well to get his name out there, and his agent's obviously going to need a pay rise if he does get the move. But I think Celtic will be fine to let him leave. We've got Anthony Ralston there, who has played the last 2 games again. I don't think Juranovic has even featured at all.
The weekend, David. I thought it was excellent the weekend.
There's one thing you cannot debate about Ralston is he has a much better delivery into the box than Juranovic. His assists speak for themselves. His commitment to the club is unmatched. Maybe the only person you could maybe argue is Callum McGregor. Like he bleeds green and white, Anthony Ralston, and it doesn't matter how much a player's worth to Atletico Madrid or Chelsea or Man United. That's invaluable to us. A player that will literally run through brick walls and then build them back up again, like Anthony Ralston. That's not to say I don't want to see us going into the transfer market and find a better replacement than Anthony Ralston and Juranovic, because we always say, how do you become a better club? By always buying better players than you already have, and that only will. And look what's happened to Anthony Ralston by bringing in a player that was seen as a much better player than Anthony Ralston, and was seen by everybody as a much better player than Anthony Ralston. We didn't even want Ralston at the club when we seen that he was going to be their only right back. We all had our head in our hands, and he shoved that right back down our throats. And fair play to the guy, but I still want to see Celtic go into the transfer market and find a good replacement that will keep Anthony Ralston on his toes, fighting for his shirt.
Well, Johnny,
we've got to think about it. It doesn't really matter, as far as I'm concerned, where he goes, whether he goes to the Premiership or wherever. We've got to be smart, and we've got to realise that this is going to be. He wants to go, and somebody's going to give us a good amount of money for it. Now, we got kind of lucky with the likes of Edouard and Ayer and Christie to a certain extent, because they didn't have a lot left on their contracts, and we still managed to get good money for them. If you look across the other side of the city, 2 or 3 years ago, by all accounts, Lyon were willing to pay 16 million for Fat Alfie.
Yep.
Rangers knocked it back, and everybody who's, I suppose, associated with Rangers are all dead happy with this. We've kept this man. They're paying for that now because they're not going to get anything for him. They might be lucky if they get £1 million for him, and that's lucky in January. If they don't get any, if he's not gone in January, he's gone for nothing. And I reckon 2 or 3 years ago he wanted to go to Lyon, and Rangers held him because they thought they were going to get more.
Well, Johnny, let's look at this from a Celtic prism right now. If Celtic were to lose someone who, at the end of the day, is a preferred name on the starting 11, like Juranovic, Ange just kind of alluded to this, like I was saying a minute ago. But not just that, he's also told us that he has plans for the January transfer window already in place. Does that mean whoever this competition for Tony Ralston is, or whoever is going to come in as the first choice right back, is already on the radar, is already identified, is already their value sussed by Celtic? It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And I think the thing is as well, there is no value, and we learnt this the hard way, in keeping players that don't want to be there. We learnt it the hard way. When a player's checked out, they've checked out. Now, I think right now you always want to back, obviously, the players at the club. whilst they're there. But I think on the bus, we've always tried to be quite honest, Johnny, about when we've looked at players and we went, where is his head at right now? How's his form fell off a cliff as much as it has? Because see, if you actually look at the second half of last season, we had many a debate on here about who do we prefer, Ralston or Juranovic. But at no point, right, was this a debate where Juranovic was getting looked at as, being slated or anything. It was going, this is a brilliant debate because there's pros and cons for them both. Whereas this year, it's felt as though, to me, his forms fell off a cliff. And there's got to be reasons for that. And I don't think Ange suffers fools. I know people want to go back to that wee clip from the DVD where he wanted the day off the next day and Ange gave him the death stare. But I find that, that's you're looking at things too much there. I think that was just a player being cheeky. Do you know what I mean? But what I would say is I would look more closely at how he's played this season. Look at his form. That mirrors to me more closely to players we've had in the past, such as Ayer and Eddie, who I think their form fell off a cliff that final season they were at Celtic, purely because deep down they didn't really want to be there. And when you look at the rumours in the summer as well, you start going, if it was him, and I'll go back to it, where did these stories come from? If it were coming from his camp, then he did want out then. And you know what? Maybe Celtic are waiting to the prime moment, which would be in the back of a World Cup, and going, we'll get maximum value for him then. I don't have any issue with that, Johnny.
No, and there may well have been, like you said, there may well have been actual firm concrete offers put into Celtic that we might not have actually heard about. And Celtic, like you've said, have said, no, we're not going to sell you just now. Because, like you've just said, the World Cup's coming up. If you play well at the World Cup, it'll bump your profile up. But it might have had the sort of opposite effect, if you like, as far as his commitment and his effort up until then to make sure I don't get injured because I need to be at this World Cup. But you think, well, I need to be at this World Cup, so I've got to play my best to get there.
Yep.
It's so I can't figure it out, to be honest with you. But like I said, if he goes with thanks, and then right, see you later, mate. You're never going to go into Celtic Hall of Fame, but
David, is this now going to be something we maybe need to get used to as fans? And I think Ange was giving us clues towards it. Look, we're going to be agile. Always go back to that word they used. And I know what he was saying. He was trying to let you know that don't expect guys in the modern world to be here 4 or 5 years and become stalwarts all the time. No, we're going to be adopting models that other European clubs with less TV revenue, for example, your Ajaxes, your Club Brugges of the world, what they utilise. They get players in, they do a really good turn for them, they help them get to the Champions League, and then they flip the transfer fee and they punt them for quadruple what they paid for them. Juranovic just might be the first example, but could this be something we maybe just need to start bracing ourselves for, David, going forward as being, this is now part of our new model. It ain't going to be that we get 5 years out of our £1 million Wanyama, then we sell them. It's going to be, you get 18 months out of these guys, 24 months out of these guys sometimes. Just accept it. We're getting quadruple the money, but I'm going to go back in stronger and bolder in the transfer, the next transfer window to get his replacement because of the funds that I'm generating for these guys. This might be the new normal for Celtic. I'm quite excited by that because it shows progression. And it also means we're going to maximise our potential revenue for players rather than clinging on to them for dear life because they've got some silly songs sung by the fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's something that we're probably going to have to get used to, and it's a big pill to swallow for a lot of fans, including myself, because I'm one of these people that I get attached to fucking characters and TV shows to so much. So never mind real people, man. So it's one of the things that I'll need to get used to as well. But I think it's, we always go on about like, oh, we need to be a bit more like an Ajax. We need to be a bit more like, these kind of teams. But well, if we want that to happen, then we're going to have to get used to what the fans over there are used to. They've just sold, and we'll never get anywhere near the kind of money like this, but like they just sold to Anthony for £80 million, right? And I'm sure the fans are absolutely gutted that he left. But it'll not be long before they've completely forgotten about Anthony and they've got some other superstar that's tearing up the Dutch league, and that's just the way it works. And then they'll sell that guy on for multiple millions of pounds as well. Yep. And that's just
that's also because when they've sold Anthony for £80 million, they've probably replaced him with £30 million. They've used 30 million of that to replace him. It's not been, let's go back to this.
Well,
Little's
Johnny,
to get a replacement.
Johnny, I'll just quickly come in on that because I do believe that's what Ange is alluding to. I think he's going, we're going to sell at the peak value. Okay, it might be a bit earlier than you're used to, but watch what I do with the money. We're going to be aggressive. I think he used the word as well, aggressive. And I think when he's saying aggressive, that means, like you're saying, Johnny, and yes, we're on a smaller scale than Ajax, but I think if we were to sell Juranovic, for example, let's talk, this is all dreamland stuff right now. Let's say we sell him for £15 million. I don't think Ange would have any hesitation in replacing a £2.5 million bought-in player that sells for 15 for maybe £6-7 million. Instantly, you're starting to then see that cycle. That begins. That then turns into your player that goes for 70-80 million pounds 5 years down the line. You are then replacing with 20-30 million. I think we're just on a smaller scale of that right now, David. But I do think that's what he means. I think he means that policy, Johnny.
Yeah,
well, Juranovic's a perfect example, but so is
the blow as well, doesn't it?
Say that again.
It cushions the blow. And, if we lose somebody at 15 million, but we spend 7 million, we think, oh, that's a new strategy. We've never done that before. So, as I say, it cushions the blow. The big test is when Jota's the one that's when Jota's the one who's under scrutiny.
The thing is, though, what you're saying is we've got a squad right now that's built up of players that are doing bits for us that are, you're like, oh, we only paid 2 million for him. Oh, he's only 1.5 million, that boy. 700,000 that boy costs. We start selling these guys like a Matt O'Reilly, who's on a massive contract, who is causing a lot of stir down south by the looks of it. Sell him for, say, just for argument's sake, 20 million. Then we go, right, okay, we've sold a guy that we paid nothing for, sold him for 20 million, and we've replaced him with a £6 million player. We do the same again a couple of years later with another guy, and another guy. Now we're saying we've got a squad littered of players that we've paid 9, 7, 8, £6 million for. And then you've got a real good, strong nucleus squad over the last couple of years that can then maybe compete in Europe. And maybe that's what, like you said, Bhoycie, that's probably Ange's plan. Like, if you want to be a big club in Europe, we have to start acting like a big club in Europe, and this is what they do. This is why the likes of Ajax and you can even argue Club Bruges. Not that I follow their transfer dealings. They're mainstays in the Champions League now.
Obviously, Ajax are a massive club. They won the Champions League, but the template's there, pal. Right? The template is there. What we need to accept maybe now in modern football, particularly the waters that we swim in, which is Scottish football, is you're not going to have guys there. You're not going to build a squad, right, that you see. Oh, do you remember Ange's team? And it was 5 years you got out of almost the same 11. Those days are gone. And the club wouldn't be being progressive enough if it were to be the case we had the same guys there for 5 years. I think it is going to be, we're going to see a lot of turnaround on players now. This is just the new normal. It's going to be the way forward. It's going to maximise our revenue, and it's a quicker way to elevate Celtic to a level where they can compete at the top tier. And I think Ange, talk about fast tracks and all that, he's wanting to find a way to fast track Celtic to be competitive at the Champions League. If he can start shifting guys that he's brought at 2.5 million on for 10 to 15 million and bringing a 5-6 million replacement he thinks deep down is maybe better than the one that he's just sold, that's progression.
It takes away the argument.
Has Ange put this to the board in the same manner as he's put it to us, being agile, being aggressive? I'm sure he has. The big question is, or the big answer we want is, are the board going to go ahead with that and support it? Because that'll let us know whether Ange is going to stay long term. And if we do what we're talking about now with Juranovic in January, that'll give us an inkling as to where we are going down that road or whether we're not.
Well, I think that's a brilliant point, because it is over to them right now. We have seen examples in the past. We don't need to go through them all. But, you look at Seville. Right, the club's teetering on the brink right now. We've just took a team that's about to win the Champions League in 12 months' time to extra time. Only because we went down to 10 men, really, did we end up losing that game. When you start thinking about it, you go, Brendan Rodgers, 2 Champions League qualifications, suddenly we can't afford the £3 million footballer. Because we put the brakes on. We allowed Celtic to get to this imaginary glass ceiling. It's all about whether that ceiling is now far higher than it used to be, or whether that ceiling remains where Celtic have always consistently kept it. If it were to be the latter, then Ange will be more likely to go to an Everton and stuff like that because there's no point in playing anymore. I just get the feeling, I could be being gullible here right now, but I get the feeling that Celtic kind of have bought in with what Ange is saying. And I think I think he's doing it from, and I spoke about this before, Ange just came into this whole thing with obsidiary eyes. He's looking at it as a complete outsider, no bias, no obstacles in front of him about what Celtic can do, can't do. And he's going, this is a football club, is a sleeping giant. This is what we need to do to progress. This club could be far bigger than what it is right now and competing at a far higher level. Listen to what I'm saying. I've got the vision. I've got the template. You need to follow suit. Will Celtic do that? Is it because Lowell's out? Or is he out? Who knows? I think he'll be back as chairman in January. But you would like to think they're not going to put the brakes on where Ange is trying to take this right now, would you?
I think they put the brakes on, Ange will just catapult over the handlebars and go.
Yeah. Nah, I think if they want to keep him, if they want to keep Ange, and it makes you wonder about this whole rolling contract. There maybe I'd still want to see him getting penned down to an actual contract, but maybe there's some sort of agreement there. It's like, you follow my vision step by step, then don't you worry about that rolling contract. Don't you worry about it. But I'd still much rather get him signed on. But I think what you're saying, if the board are going to back him, and I think they will as well, just for the fact he's getting to say all that in these press conferences and there's been nothing really said otherwise about it, that they've obviously given him the green light.
Even at the AGM, he said it.
Yeah, so that kind of says to me that the board at the minute are on board, and that so long as what he's saying begins to, we start to reap the rewards from that, then I think that then they'll continue to let him do that. And I think with Ange, you're right, Ange will be seen as this Celtic Football Club is a sleeping giant in European football, and that must excite him. I still think he pinches himself that he's the Celtic manager, because I'm sure he backs himself to the hill that he's an elite manager and he's got the entire Australian nation and Japanese nations that all know that. But I think he knows that too. But I still think I didn't expect to be at Celtic Football Club, and look what he's been given almost like a clean slate, a plain canvas to just go to town on. Because we've got the foundations there to do it. He's already got the foundations of the fan base, the size of the club.
But it comes with a shortcut to the Champions League too.
Totally.
He wasn't going to get a top 4 job in any of the top leagues, right? But joining Celtic, you get this sort of back entry into the Champions League, which is where every manager wants to compete. I think he's looked at that as well and went, wait now, win the league in a 2-horse race, and you could be potentially in group stage football in the Champions League 2 years in a row. That, I think, speaks a lot of volumes as well.
The other thing we ask about Ange is he obviously wants to go to the very top, and he wants to become one of the best managers of all time. And he wants to. I think he wants to be like a lot of us, I suppose. He would want to be in 40 years' time. People still talk about him the same way we do about Jock Stein, or certainly not even people of my age. Every Celtic supporter still talks about Jock Stein. He's not been the manager of Celtic since 1982 or something like that. I can't remember exactly when it was. But, we still talk about Jock Stein in these glittering terms, which is obviously quite right. I think Ange wants something like that, and his best place to get that is by waking up this sleeping, almost dead giant and taking it right back up as far as it can go. And he won't get a better opportunity at any other club.
Johnny, I think that wraps it up very nicely for a breakfast bar, and I think you're absolutely spot on. We look forward to the Sydney Super Cup. We will be watching with great interest. I'm sure there'll be plenty of Celtic content coming out. We will be back tomorrow with the TNF. It'll be a sort of inadvertent PMP, I suppose, as well. And we'll reflect on the first of our matches in the Ange homecoming tour, see how it goes down, see how Celtic play. And obviously, over this World Cup break, we will be having a wee focus on Celtic players that are there, whether they're impressing or not, and whether they're inflating their transfer fees. David Logue, Johnny Logue, thank you for joining me this morning on the Breakfast Bar. It's been great fun. And thank you to every single one of you who has joined us. Remember, hit that like button, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will catch you very soon for the TNF tomorrow evening. Cheers, guys.
See ya.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.